Now it gives me a great pleasure to share with you a video message from Lorenzo Fioramonti, Minister of Education, Universities, and Research in Italy. Lorenzo wanted to join us, but he can't because it's budget time in Italy. This is hand-to-hand combat, you know, getting money for education. So Lorenzo could not be with us today, but already confronted by the harsh realities of climate change, from heat and rising sea levels to the massive influx of refugees driven to their shores by climate-related, environmental, as well as war and terror, Italy recently became the first nation to require climate change be taught in all schools in the country in every grade. Minister Fioramonti asked me to share this letter with all of you. Dear colleagues, Rome, 12 September 2019. Thank you for inviting me to the Environmental and Climate Change Literacy Summit. It is indeed a great honor. I would have loved to be with you on this occasion, but unfortunately, due to government duties, I am not available at this time. Climate change is arguably the biggest challenge that humanity has ever faced. At this point in history, we have the responsibility of determining the future of our civilization. We need to find viable solutions to address this pressing matter. The current economic structure is eroding the planet's resources faster than ever and exacerbating inequality within our societies. Policymakers must now implement a new evidence-based economic paradigm enabling real change and meeting the demands of younger generations. The UN Sustainable Development Goals constitute a vital step in creating a world that is simultaneously prosperous, equitably shared, and ecologically sustainable. Education and research are a key component in this transition, as they allow us to challenge our prejudices and to question the very core of contemporary society. Creativity, innovation, thinking outside the box, all continue to create a knowledge economy, which is necessary to build a sustainable economy. This week, I will take part in the COP25 UN Climate Change Conference in Madrid, España, where I will discuss the groundbreaking policies that the Italian government is implementing for climate empowerment in education. Details provided in the video, he says. He reminds me that. Grazie tante, caro. I believe that universities are pioneers and have a pivotal role to play in this much-needed shift. They provide solid research, disseminate knowledge, and offer possible solutions, both in terms of mitigation of climate change effects and resiliency. Tech transfers can certainly be a tool for progress, and in particular, for empowerment of youth towards sustainable living. A project like the California project, your project, clearly shows that we must address education if we want to spread and propagate a model where human and ecosystems well-being are at the center of our world. In this critical phase, I consider cooperation and partnerships between universities fundamental in order to exchange ideas, share opinions, and share best practices. Synergies in the academic world will allow us to compare our education models and reinforce our commitment to the sustainability targets as the world moves forward. I would be delighted if we could keep me updated on the development of the project and if we could work together, Italy and California, to explore innovative ways of partnership towards our common goal. I give you Minister Lorenzo.
My greetings to the organizers and the participants in the Environmental and Climate Change Literacy Project and Summit in California. I believe your initiative is extremely important because we are 10 years away from 2030, the fundamental threshold, the date by when the whole world will have needed to change in order to make our societies, our economies fully compatible with planetary boundaries. This is the greatest challenge that our generation has ever faced. I would say that humanity has ever faced. And it's a challenge that puts together innovation, new development patterns, new development models, and a lot of creativity that needs to go into restructuring everything that has to do with human life. So we believe in Italy that this is a fundamental challenge that can also galvanize a new generation with a specific goal, the possibility of creating a better economy, creating a better society, and impacting on a better world. We believe that schools can play a significant role in this process. This is why we have decided that as of the 1st of September 2020, Italian schools will have a new matter, a new subject in schools in all levels, primary, middle, and high schools, in which they're going to be studying as a mandatory subject climate change, sustainable development, and a new form of responsible citizen. This is an evolution of what is better known as civic education. Civic education for us in the 21st century, civic education means responsible and sustainable citizenship. We believe that the citizen of the future must become a fundamentally sustainable citizen. Now, how do you do this? Of course, this means building a new type of awareness regarding our interaction with ecosystems. So understanding how ecosystems work, how we as humans impact them positively and negatively, what ecosystems do for us as well. But it also means taking care of our place, taking care of our communities, building more equitable societies. It also means creating a different relationship between individuals and communities at large, and making schools laboratories of innovation. So we have decided that in January next year, we will start training teachers in schools. At present, these teachers usually focus on law and economics, constitutional rights, science and technology. So we're going to put teachers that are trained on these matters together and go through a training process that will involve a good part of the first 6 months of 2020, so as to be able to start in September 2020 with this new matter, this new theme of sustainable development education. We have used the 2030 Agenda of the United Nations as the major framework. Why? We wanted to have a framework which was universally accepted. We've all ratified the SDGs agenda. We all understand the 17 goals, and we know that sustainability in this new conceptualization means social, economic, and environmental conditions and processes brought together. It's not just an environmental focus, but it's also a social and economic focus. We understand that all these different dynamics have to be integrated into one single way of moving forward. So, having decided that the UN 2030 Agenda becomes the framework, we have reconceptualized the old-fashioned module of civic education into a new language, a language that puts ecosystems at the center, puts responsibility towards the planet and environmental rights at the center of a new approach to our constitution, for instance. So all national constitutions have significant elements that can talk to younger generations in very innovative terms. Often we look at the constitutions with the lenses of the past, but looking at the Constitution with a projection of the future makes us understand that some of our constitutions have a lot to say about how to build a more equitable society, how to reduce inequalities, how to take care of the environment, and how to build an economy, a society which is more in balance with the planetary conditions. Then we've also decided to put a lot of focus, place a lot of emphasis on the relationship between the single citizen, the student, and the territory, the neighborhood, the village, the place, the city where he or she lives. This is fundamental to help kids reconnect with the social and environmental conditions in which they operate. Often we have a learning process that is somehow separating the learners from the environment, the social environment as well, in which they live. So we want to build to help them reconnect with the environment at large. And doing so means also understanding, for instance, the specific characteristics of their place. What kind of institutions are insisting on that specific territory? How does a citizen interact with enterprises, with public institutions, with the third sector? What does that mean? How do you build a community? What are the fundamental pillars of a sustainable community? We've also decided to focus on concepts like the commons, the common good, what is shared, how do we understand our interaction with water, how do we understand our interaction with air, how do we understand our interaction with waste, and how our waste produced by our consumption patterns is impacting society and the environment. These are all elements that, if you will, are part and parcel of a new idea of citizen, of responsible citizen, but at the same time help younger generations, kids in primary school, for instance, to connect with the bigger scheme of things, with the bigger concept of sustainable development and the UN agenda. So we're starting in primary school with very pragmatic module, with very pragmatic examples, helping children reconnect with nature and society by their daily experience. Then we move on to, in middle schools, we move on to a more technical understanding of what can be done. So we're going to be introducing, for instance, new references to new technologies, how the digitalization of the economy and the growth of renewable energies can impact different models of development, and how can you have that built and experimented, for instance, in your school. So some pragmatic elements of the module will also include partnerships with associations and researchers that will come to schools and teach kids how you can build a small wind turbine, how you can build a solar heating panel, so that you can start understanding the practical implications of making your community more resilient, still with some technical knowledge, but also preserving that strong connection with the idea of community, the idea of place, which is so important to make sure that kids learn something which is practically relevant for their lives. And then we move on to high schools. In high schools, the theoretical component of the module will be more prevalent, and also the possibility of connecting this with the international arena. So understanding exactly what are the legal processes that can be exploited and used in order to achieve sustainable development. What does it mean to live in a sustainable international environment? What does the European Union do in this regard? How can citizens and students interact with international organizations in order to pursue environmental objectives as well as new civic objectives and more participatory governance processes? So all of this is built in a way which helps children, helps pupils, helps students understand that the practical reference to responsible citizenship, to sustainable citizenship, makes them able to connect the daily experience of what they do in a very pragmatic fashion with the more theoretical and international understanding of what is happening in the international community at large. It's important to preserve the two, to make sure that from 6 years of age until 19 years of age, they're brought through a journey. They're accompanied through a journey that will make them understand exactly how their daily life is impacting their territory, their village, their neighborhood, their city, their country, and the world at large. So it has to be able to connect what is global and what is local, and really have a strong global perspective and a new set of skills that can be used to become more responsible and sustainable citizens. I hope that this experience, which is going to be, as I said, introduced next year, and will, of course, mark a fundamental step towards making sustainable development part and parcel of what it means to be a student and what it means to be part of this incredible learning experience, may also influence other countries, and that the idea of using sustainable development as a new lens across a variety of different perspectives may become a defining feature of learning and teaching in the 21st century. The ultimate goal is, of course, not only to have one single module. In Italy, it will be 33 hours a year, so roughly 1 hour per week. This is a first step. I see it as a positive contamination strategy, contaminating the teaching modules, the teaching at school, and make sure that this can be, in a second step, influence the entire array of topics in schools, because we have to make sure that sustainable development is not only confined to one single subject, but in the second step, which we're going to be activating as of next year, we're going to be able to start influencing the learning and teaching of mathematics, of physics, of geography, of roughly, potentially all the other subject matters in schools, so as to be able to say it's the entire curriculum that is also changing, to build a thin red line that connects all the different subject matters through the lens of sustainable development. There is a way of understanding geography as a fundamental component of sustainable development. There's a way of understanding physics through the lens of sustainable development. There is a way of understanding roughly everything we learn through the lens of what it means to be achieving the objectives of sustainable development. So the first step is introducing this new subject matter, which is going to start next year in September. And the second step is using this as a positive Trojan horse, a contaminating element that can positively influence and impact the entire school curriculum. The second step, of course, will require more time. But I think once you start somewhere, it's easier then to build bridges and to make sure that perhaps within the next 3 to 5 years, we may have a totally renewed school curriculum in Italy that makes sustainable development the cornerstone of a new way of learning and teaching.
Thank you, Minister Fioramonti. I'm very, very happy to say that in the first week of February, Professor Ram, Professor Wolf, Professor Gomez, where are you, Luis? Professor Rogers, where are you, John? Will join us in Rome, and we will meet with Minister Fioramonti as we begin another chapter in the Vatican to inform the Holy Father, Pope Francis, of endeavors in the field of education towards a more humane, a more sustainable, a more engaged education system for all the children in the world. Italy is an inspiration for all of us, persevering until all children receive environmental and climate change education as a matter of course is, I think, what so many of us hope to achieve.